Hey Jeff, can you call the people in from the hallway?
Again, I just want to mention that if anybody from the public wants to make an address during the public comment period, please fill out one of those forms. And when you come up to present, please give it to Brian, the chair.
All right, let's call this meeting of the Washtenaw County Solid Waste Planning Committee public hearing to order. Thanks for letting me do that. I only get to do it twice a meeting, it's fun. Everyone should have access to an agenda and some materials from the hallway, so do help yourself to those. There are bathrooms out the door and to the left if you need them. There is water available this evening as well. If we can begin by introducing the team that's present here today. I think that would be helpful for folks in the audience to know who we are. My name is Brian Weinert, and I'm the chair of the Solid Waste Planning Committee.
Pierre Gagnon, vice chair, and representing St. Joe's.
Nancy Stone, general public citizen representative.
I'm Jeff Kirchmerrick. I work for the Washtenaw County Board of Public Works and facilitate the solid waste planning process.
I'm Steve Feynman, and I'm a member of the Public Works Board.
I'm Joelle Bowman. I'm a solid waste specialist here in the county. I'm Anna Lynett. I'm with Resource Recycling Systems. We're the consultant helping with the solid waste plan process.
Thank you all for being here this evening. Appreciate your involvement in this process. Look forward to the comments that we'll be receiving this evening. To walk you through what we're hoping to achieve tonight, we will get an update from the MDEQ on the advanced disposal site. Larry Bean is here from MDEQ and will offer some comments related to the landfill situation. We'll then get a presentation by Anna, a brief overview of the solid waste management plan amendment and the process that was undertaken to get to the point that we are today. Jeff will then lead a discussion about the proposed action plan for actually implementing the plan, assuming that something like the plan that you have seen will be implemented, allowing you some chance to participate in that process in a more back and forth sort of way. At that point, we will then move to the actual public hearing section, where you as members of the public will have up to 3 minutes to address comments into the record relating to the draft solid waste plan. It is not a dialogue, so this, unlike a few of our earlier sessions and the back and forth that will happen as part of the audience participation earlier, this will be the more formal 3-minute max public comment. We do have someone keeping a record of the comments that are being received. If you have your slip filled out, that would be helpful if you could hand that to me at the beginning of your remarks. I'm going to number each card so that when the minute keeper doesn't need to get detailed name information, just needs to know it's speaker 3, and these were the comments that were received, and then she can later add the names of the folks that were addressing us this evening. If that makes sense. I apologize if that is a little long-winded. We will then close the public hearing, and then Jeff will talk a little bit about what the follow-up steps are and what the timeline is moving forward, and we will look to adjourn. There's no closing time. I would hope we could be out of here by 7:30, 8 o'clock, but we'll see what the nature of the discussion and the comments are, and we'll build accordingly. So, with that, anything else that needs to be said in the way of introduction?
No, I think we covered it.
Thank you very much. So, we'll turn it over at this point to Mr. Bean from MDEQ to update us on the advanced disposal of Arbor Hills Landfill.
I know some people are here from the neighboring area east of the landfill in Northville Township. There has been an increase in odors the last week because the gas plant went down. DTE forced the gas plant to go down for their reasons. Sometimes based on their work or what's going on in the grid, they have to shut down the plant. And so it was down for about a week. Currently, the flares are undersized at the landfill to handle the amount of gas coming out of there when the gas plant goes down. And so that caused a backup. I think what you were detecting was a little bit more gas coming out than normal, but still there's more gas coming out of there than really what should be. And so even when the gas plant is up and running, you're still getting some lower levels of odor than last year. But there's more work ongoing. Larger pipe is going to be installed on the north side. On the west side, they have to put a larger pipe underneath the railroad track. They have to coordinate with the engineers from the railroad company to ensure they don't cause any infrastructure problems with the railroad track. They don't want to train the railroad there. And a larger flare is going to go in on the north side of the railroad track, between the railroad track and the landfill, to handle the gases when the plant goes down. So at that point, then they should be able to manage the gas better. It's my understanding all of the wells are in that they think they need at this point. It's a matter of getting the transmission pipes in and getting that gas now down to the plant. We have a construction permit in-house right now from the landfill for a permit modification. So it's not an expansion. It actually will reduce their volume a little bit. It's to rearrange the liner, redesign one part of the liner right near where the current office is, the old building, the old house. It's their office building there. That's going to be a cell that they will construct later this fall into next year. And they were going to, under the 2009 permit, they were going to excavate some old waste in that area and to put the liner down a little bit lower, even with the liner that was over on the west side, the northwest corner. But they want to limit how much waste they have to excavate because they don't want to cause odors excavating the old waste. So they decided to do an overliner where they're raising up the liner a little bit and sloping it over to the west. It was supposed to slope to the north or to the northeast. So this portion of the liner will slope to the west and drain into the cell that's currently constructed there in the center of the facility, the north center part. So that's all it is. It's just a rearrangement of that liner sloping in that north area. So we have that in-house. Our engineers are looking at that. We have 120 days to look at it, but we probably will process it before then because it's a rather simple engineering design, unless the engineers come up with that technical issue with it, but it should be fairly straightforward. That's where we're at this point. We look forward to the gas system upgrades, some final cover being installed on the south side of the landfill to help contain the gas. They have that synthetic cover on what they call the bowl on the north side. We're going to add more of that synthetic. That's a temporary cap just to help hold in the gas a little bit and help capture it a little bit better. They'll add to that this fall. So they're trying to getting the companies in to do that. Construction companies for landfill liners are at a premium right now because there's a lot of work going on around the country. So they should be doing that in the next few months. Any questions on that?
I'm not sure, has the pipe gone under the railroad tracks?
No, there are, it's my understanding, 3 pipes, but they're all small and together, they're still not adequate. So they want to put one large pipe in. Hasn't been installed yet.
And do we know if the railroad is at least talking to them? Sometimes.
I don't know where they are, they should be talking to the railroad company, they should be applying for that right now. That's what they want to do, is install it. So the sooner they start that process, the sooner the railroad company can evaluate the plans and approve it. But they don't go through us to coordinate that with the railroad company. So I don't know where they are in that process.
I'm not criticizing Advance, I'm criticizing the railroad. The railroad isn't very responsive when people come to them in general.
Yeah, but they have to be careful on any construction work around the railroad. They want to be sure that it's done right And their engineers are probably busy with other railroad upgrades, and this is somebody else working around their railroad. And their engineers are going to have to look at this to approve it and make sure that it won't affect the railroad. So they probably have to schedule it in. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, well, in the public notice, it says that you received the application on June 23rd, 2016. Is that accurate?
There was, we received it earlier and then found it administratively incomplete because we didn't get the letter from the county planning agency saying that it was consistent. So it's not a complete application until we have that letter that says that it's consistent with the county plan. And it is consistent with the county plan because it's not changing the footprint, it's not changing the height, it actually reduced the volume, not increased the volume. So it should be automatically consistent. But technically, we have to have the letter. So it took a little bit of time to get the letter from the county. The county then said, yes, it is consistent, and then the package was complete. And then at that date listed there was the date that we then evaluated all the parts of it and said, yes, it is administratively complete.
But your question is 2017 instead of
Right, has it
2016?
been over a year since you received it?
No, that's, what does it say in there?
On June 23rd, 2016,
That's
the
a typo.
Department of Environmental Quality received an
No,
application from
that's
Advanced
a
Disposal
typo on the
Services.
paper there. No, we just received that. It was in June this year.
And does this affect the old portion of the landfill? I don't know where all the cells are, but is this
Yeah.
part of the online portion that Republic owned that Advanced just recently took ownership of?
No,
Is that what we're
Republic
talking about?
owned the old closed landfill on the east side. This is north of that. So this is the area that Advanced received a permit for along the northern part of the landfill, between the current landfill and 6 Mile. And they started with those cells. They got that permit in 2009 and started building those cells over at the northwest corner. And now they're progressing east. And this is one of the cells along that area, right there, just between the White House and the landfill. So it's right in that area.
And, okay, and when should we expect them to start filling in that?
Well, they have
cell?
to construct the cell. They want to start excavating and start the preparation work this fall. I don't know if they'll have time to put the liner in this fall. If not, then they'll have to wait till spring.
Okay. Well, the other big pressing issue that I hope you were planning to address tonight is the confusion and the issues with lodging the odor complaints to the MDEQ's 800 number. I've talked with several people, and I've even been a witness to people calling that number and being told that they cannot submit their complaint, and the person just being completely unwilling to accept the complaint, saying you either have to call this number for Arbor Hills Landfill, or you have to go to this website.
The operators to the 800 number are supposed to take the information down, but they are explaining to people that that's a pollution emergency. The 800 number is for pollution emergencies. So that number is designed, it's like not dialing 911. That's for railroad cars that have tipped over and are exploding, and people need to be evacuated, and large quantities of hazardous materials are flowing down the creek, tanker trucks on the highway, large storage tanks blowing up, those types of things where they then need to call somebody from the DEQ from home, off hours on the weekend or in the middle of the night, and go out and coordinate with the fire departments or the emergency management people and solve that problem. So that's what that number is designed for. But if people call, they'll take down the information, but what they prefer is that you go through the site's, the facility's website. If you do that and lodge a complaint in there, then an email from that website is automatically sent to the facility, and they can look at it and see if there's anything that they can do right away to help solve that problem, if there's something going on that they didn't recognize. Plus, an email is sent to us at the same time. Now, you can also call us in the Jackson District Office directly, or send us an email, and we will get that. And actually, we will get that sooner than if you call the 800 number, because the people at the 800 number, since this is not a pollution emergency, they will take the information down on a form, copy that as a PDF file, and then email that to us, and then eventually we get that, but it's not immediately. If it's not a pollution emergency, they're not calling us right away telling us to get out there. because we can't do that right now. It's not-
And is that
What it's
consistent
for.
throughout the state for all
Yes.
districts?
Right, right. So it's, I mean, they will take information down if people call and say, hey, I've got, my neighbor is dumping waste on the ground or something. They'll take the information down and pass it along, but it's really not designed for that. And if it's an actual emergency, then they start the emergency process, and they've got a call down list, and they'll track down people at home, wherever they are, and order people out to deal with the emergency situation.
But just to confirm, in the cases that I witnessed, they did not take the person's information.
They're supposed to. I know that Scott Miller is coordinating with the P's on-call people. We have various volunteers from DEQ that rotate through that off-hour calling system, and so maybe we had somebody misunderstood the directions. But they are going to talk about that tomorrow. And the instructions are to take the information down, but ask people to go the other routes and not call the emergency number for a nuisance odor. I mean, if there's something, really, an emergency situation, then yes, use it. Somebody called when there was the large fire at the materials recycling facility, and they tracked me down at home. And I looked up on my phone the email for one of the operators at the landfill and called them. I said, we're getting a report of a large fire over there, and they had no idea. They said, we didn't know anything about that, so they ran over there to see what was going on. So it worked at that point in that situation. But for nuisance odors, it's really not designed for that. Yes?
So is this somewhat of a change in direction with that phone number? Because for the past year and a half, up until a few months ago, there was no problem with that.
Yeah, Scott Miller initially from
Because of the volume?
Well, from air quality, Scott Miller initially asked people to use that
Yeah.
because he doesn't have a cell phone, and Diane didn't either. And they wanted to be able to come out in the middle of the night. When it first was a real problem last year as far as the higher level odors, and we were trying to get a handle of what was going on and how much, they wanted to have the ability to come out in the middle of the night. And so they said, they encouraged people to call at that point the P's number, so the P's would then call them. The P's on-call operators were instructed to call Diane and Scott in the middle of the night or on the weekends, whenever it was, so that they could then roll out if they were available and see what the odor looked like,
So then
to see if they could
why-
detect the odor and where it was coming from.
So then why, for lack of better words, the pushback on that?
Well, because
Just because of volume of calls?
we have a handle on what it is. And now it's lower levels. The gas system's undersized. They're improving the gas system, so we don't need to run out to detect that because we already know. We know it's there. We know it's intermittent. We know it's lower levels, and we have been getting out there more frequently at this landfill than any other landfill. And we are identifying the same types of odors that their third-party consultant has identified, so we're confident that they are accurately recording what it is.
Are they allowed to vent in the middle of the night? I started riding my bike early in the morning, and you can just smell waves of it as I ride.
It's because it's being pushed out. They're not venting, they burn it off. Any extra, and the gas is supposed to be burned off in the flares. But because the system was not maintained for a number of years by Republic, the maintenance is way behind. The amount of work that they've had to put into that over the past year is a demonstration of how far behind Republic was in the work that they were supposed to be doing out there. So EPA is still in enforcement mode with both companies, but we'll see how that shakes out. But gas is being emitted, it's just blowing out. As I walk
How
around the
they make it happen
landfill,
at night?
I find